Hi, I'm John Schockel, and welcome to A Missionary Moment. Today I'm delighted to sit down with Riley Kelsch, a junior student here at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. Riley's going to be telling us just a little about her story and how she came to encounter the Catholic Church and Christ in it, and why she became Catholic. So, Riley, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we were talking a little bit before this. I'm from Illinois, and you came up to Platteville to study
Forensic investigation, criminal justice. Yep.
Yeah. Well, so tell us pretty much just a little bit about yourself and what you were thinking as you were coming to college.
Yeah. So I did not grow up religious at all. My family never went to church or anything, so I didn't really have any encounter with any religion, and that was the same way throughout high school. Most of my friends also weren't religious because I was involved in sports, so it was kind of like a time thing for them as well. And then coming to college, same thing. Never even thought about it until in March when our school shut down because of quarantine, because of COVID. One of the missionaries here worked with the softball team, and she reached out to some of us and asked if we wanted to join a Bible study. And I was very hesitant at first because it was not something I had ever done, ever even considered. And I didn't think that I would like it, but eventually I just told her, yeah, I'll go to one, I'll try it, I'll just see how it is. And even the first one, I loved it. I did not expect to like it like I did. So I kept on showing up every single week, and I just kept wanting to learn more. And so at the end of May, once school stopped, we also stopped Bible study, but I was like, I don't want this to end. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. All I know is that I've liked what we've talked about in Bible study, and I want to keep learning more of it. And so she suggested that we started our own Bible study, and then we did that.
Just the two of you?
Yeah, just the two of us on our own, because everyone else was done, and I just, I just kept on wanting to learn more.
So what did you like about it? You went to the first one, maybe not even necessarily skeptical, but just not even knowing what to expect. What about it did you find compelling?
Yeah, so in the first one, we actually talked about original sin and how that all started and what happened. And I think it was kind of it brought me an answer, kind of. Not an answer to a question that I've always been wondering, but it was oh, that makes a lot of sense. I wonder what else, we could learn about that could bring answers, or that can just teach me things that I never knew about. And it's everything has a reason of why it's happening. And I think that was kind of what kept on bringing me back, is because I was what else is there that I could learn that could give me answers that I never knew I was looking for, kind of.
So original sin brought clarity to why the world is a messy place. Yeah. Pretty much?
Yes.
What were you thinking before that? Because we're all experiencing and living in this messiness.
I mean, I don't even think I had any idea. Because I said, I was never religious at all. So the idea of there could be a reason why the world is like this never even crossed my mind. And I think that's why I kept going back, is because I'm what are other things that I don't even know are a thing? Because of religion and stuff like that. So I don't think I had anything in mind of what it was like before, or why our world was like this. But getting an answer for it was just, I loved it, and I wanted more of that. So
there was no religious affiliation whatsoever growing up?
None. My mom was Catholic, but she hadn't been practicing for as long as I could remember. And then my dad was raised Protestant, but also not practicing for as long as I could remember. And I think we went to church once, a non-denominational church once, Christmas Eve. And that was my whole life. And that was the extent of my religion. Was we went to church Christmas Eve. Right.
So you come here, you sit down with this missionary, Carly Brosek.
Yes.
Shout out to Carly Brosek. And you start meeting with her more frequently. As you're learning more, what's that like for you? Is it overwhelming because there's so much, or was it just a little piece at a time?
It was kind of overwhelming. I mean, I wanted to do it, so I loved it. But I think I'm the type of person that wants a lot of answers to everything. And I mean, part of the faith is that there aren't definite answers. Nobody knows some answers. And I think those were things that I was questioning. So it was a little bit overwhelming, but I knew that I wanted to do it, so I didn't have a problem with it. And each week we would talk about like different stories in the Bible or how to apply certain things to my life. So it was really good. I loved doing it.
Did it start to sink in, or did you have a realization moment of, okay, this is a different worldview? Like this Catholic thing that I'm learning about, the lens that it's suggestion that I have to see the world through is very different than the one you grew up sort of seeing through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was very different. Well, so we started talking about just Christianity in general, because not all of the girls in our original Bible study were Catholic. And so even just that just brought a completely different view. Is like, it was just stuff I had never learned before. And then once we started talking about Catholicism, it definitely brought a different view. And it's kind of hard to put into words, but I was like, oh my gosh, like there is a God watching over everybody. That's what intrigued me a lot, because it was like, there's something greater than everybody, and he is like loving all of us. And I think part of that was like kind of took some weight off my shoulders, like that I didn't even know I was carrying. Because it was like, okay, I'm going through struggles right now, but it's going to be okay because God is there for me and God is like working for me. So yeah, I think it just kind of opened up my eyes, like that there is something greater than all of this in the world. And I think that's like the biggest thing for that.
Yeah, St. Augustine says that learning about the faith and just understanding it theologically and receiving what the church has to teach us is basically an affirmation to what we already implicitly know. Which I thought is an interesting point that you made there. That we implicitly, God imprints these things on our souls, sort of implicitly. We're restless. That's why, there's so much restlessness and pain. We're just talking about original sin. The world's just not the way it should be. We were wired for something different than a life without God. And then he goes on to say that the church makes explicit what we always know in our soul is implicit. And it brings a word to it. It brings delight and freshness and like a vivification really of our life that we didn't have before. So why do you like asking questions so much? I mean, look around. Like, there's not a lot of. I think we could safely say, correct me if you think I'm wrong, that the majority of college-age students are not thinking about these questions like this. They may have some level of curiosity, but they don't have a conviction of, I'm going to dive into this. Like, I need to. Most people are pretty lukewarm. Like they're just comfortable where they're at. Why were you not comfortable where you at? It sounded like life wasn't terrible before.
No, it wasn't at all, and that's why I think like I never realized that I needed God in my life, because my life was pretty good before. But I think I'm just in general like a person that needs structure, and I just like having the answers to a lot of things. But I think like in this Bible study, it was like, if I had the answers to this, I could help apply it to my life, or it could help me understand like why things are the way they are. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but it was just like having the answers would bring me clarity. And yeah, I could apply it to my life more. And I think I just always wanted to learn more, like I kept on saying. So asking questions like that could help me learn more and dive deeper into all of that.
So what would you say to people who, because we are, we're all made for God, and there's so many people who live outside a relationship with God and don't know Him and don't know these things. Is there anything that you say to them, or that you have said throughout this process that you've been diving into the faith, into Catholic thought, to like help compel them, help them move them past where they are? Or what do you think about that to people who are just sort of complacent, like, that's just your preference, Riley?
Yeah, well, I was in that same position, like just a year ago. I never, if it wasn't for that missionary, I don't know if I ever would have, for Carly, I don't know if I ever would have joined the faith, because I didn't think that I needed it. It was something that I never even was like, yeah, I might want to do this. So I just think that I would tell people to be completely open to whoever comes across them in their life and whoever tries to reach out to them, because that's what started me on this journey, was just somebody reaching out and saying, hey, do you want to join this, just so we can stay connected.
Yeah.
So I would say be completely open, because you never know how it's going to affect your life. And obviously now that I am Catholic, it's like the greatest decision I've ever made is to go to that one Bible study. So I would encourage people to think about it like that, is you don't know what's going to happen in your life until you try it out. And if you try it out and you don't like it, okay, that's fine. But at least give it a chance, because God will like work wonders in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It's
I'm
like,
very
just
thankful.
give it a chance. If it doesn't work out, if you don't like it, that's fine. But anybody who really gives God a chance, of course, encounters him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that even if you don't like it at first, he will still find a way.
Right.
Even if it's not at that point in time, he will still find a way
Right.
to bring you closer to him.
Was there anything that you that was tough that you were learning about, like that you kind of dug your heels in about, like, I don't know, this sort of challenges the way that I think?
I don't know if there were specific topics, but I think a lot of it did, because I grew up for 20 years like building my own beliefs.
Yeah.
And then just all of a sudden it's like you learn what the church's beliefs are, and it's like, well, those don't completely match up with mine, because I've been living my own way for 20 years. And so I don't know if it was like specifically one belief that I struggled with most, but it was more like, okay, these are things that I've been doing my whole life that the church doesn't allow or doesn't believe in.
Right.
And I knew that I wanted to be Catholic, so I'm like, okay, well, how can I adjust to this? How can I change like what I've been doing? And so that was something I kind of struggled with.
Yeah. I remember when I was struggling with this kind of thing in college too. So many people do. It's invariable, really. It's the human condition. Like, you see the church and you see its rules and it's the commandments, the laws, the commandments from God. And it's so easy as humans to just see that on the surface and not the deeper framework of these commandments exist so that we can live in communion with God.
Yes.
Like in a relationship, I'm married to Rachel. There are basic commandments that allow me to live in communion with Rachel, to be close to her, such as let her know if I'm not going to be coming home on time, or serving her however I can. Not as a basic rule or a hoop to jump through, but rather it's a response of love, an invitation to love. God invites us to love. We say yes to love, and when we say yes to love, what are the commandments but simple signposts that bring us to him? Yeah, it's so much of it is just perspective. I like how you talked about sort of your subjective framework and how eventually that came to encounter the objective framework or worldview or claims of the church. So then that brought an awareness of how did that affect you? Was it like life is actually not about me, or what was that like?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing was like realizing that these aren't like rules to punish you, but they are things to like help you with your life. God knows what's going to help you in your life. That's why he's setting like these rules or boundaries, because he knows it's going to be best for you. So I think like looking at it like that definitely helped me to kind of see, like, look at things differently. Like, okay, I need to follow these rules, do these things, because that's going to make my life better. And that's how I'm going to be closest to God, which is the ultimate goal. And yeah, I think it just helped me to live more with God in the center of my life, because he's the one who's made these like quote unquote rules, and he's the one guiding me closer to him. So I think that just brought like a different outlook on how to live my life.
So then you're meeting with Carly over the summer. This is last summer, so this is just less than a year ago.
Yes.
And you're learning more about the faith. When did you start thinking about becoming Catholic?
It actually wasn't until she brought it up, because at that point I was kind of just like so into learning about Christianity in general. And then she kind of started talking more about Catholicism, since obviously she's Catholic. And she was explaining to me like why Catholicism, and she was kind of talking about how this is the faith that Christ instituted himself, and it's like the truth. And I loved it. And I'm like, well, why would I want to join any other faith than the one that Christ instituted himself? And so I think once we just kept on talking about that, that just stuck with me the rest of the time we were doing Bible study. So yeah, I think I just like loved what she was talking about Catholicism and why you should choose it, and that's what made me want to.
So you entered RCIA last fall. It started in September?
Yeah, started in September.
Favorite thing about RCIA?
I think it was like just that every week we were learning something new about the faith, which is the purpose of it. But it just, like I was talking about, I love getting answers to things, and I think RCIA brought me a lot of those answers. And with that, it just helped bring me closer to God, because, you know, we're learning about his faith. So I think that was my favorite thing, is that I just loved watching the videos and learning more about every aspect of the faith.
Most challenging aspect of RCIA? It's a long stretch. It's definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah, it is. It definitely throughout the time I like kind of questioned a little bit, especially as we're learning about the faith, like things that didn't completely line up with beliefs that I had before. So I definitely questioned, like, is this going to be right for me? Am I going to be able to live out the faith well? Yeah, it was very different, and I think it's a big commitment, because like it's a big choice you're making, and once you're Catholic, it's not just like, okay, I'm Catholic and now like I don't have to do anything. Right. Like you still have to keep on working, still have to live out the faith, and that was something that I was kind of intimidated by, because it was so different than what my life had been before. So that was kind of something I struggled with for a while. Yeah. Ultimately, I realized that like this is what I want to be doing, and it is a big commitment, but I want to make that commitment. Right. And it's gonna make my life better, so I want to keep working towards it. But
I love how simply you think about things. Like, this is the right thing to do, so I'm gonna do it. Or the word commitment. There's you know, on a college campus, a phrase that's used quite frequently, particularly on the weekends, is the phrase FOMO.
Yep.
Fear of missing out. Hey, you want to come over and hang out at our place? You know, let me know if I have anything going on. We're afraid of missing out on fun, on things, pretty much things that we prefer, rather than an objective offer that's made to us. Because when there's an offer made and we commit to it, we surrender control. Surrendering control to the one who loves us most is fundamentally and finally a freeing thing. It's to take the burden off of ourselves and say, it's not up to me. It's not all about me. In fact, it's not about me at all. I don't exist in the Egodrama. It's what, as you're talking here, I'm thinking of Bishop Barron's paradigm that I believe, I don't remember who he draws it from, but he talks about the Egodrama versus the Theodrama. That fundamentally what we're actually living in, properly speaking, this is what we're talking about here, is a Theodrama. God extends divine supernatural life to us. And to say yes to that is to live in his Theodrama, the drama of God, the narrative of him, and to walk his paths. Versus the Egodrama of, you know, life is, you know, finally about me and my preferences and my career and my money and my relationships and so forth. But that it's, in fact, the Egodrama that brings slavery. And it's the Theodrama that brings freedom.
Yeah.
So I like the way you explain that there. What was this like with your family?
It was amazing for them. So last semester I went on a retreat to Kansas, and there we like went to adoration, went to mass, and when I came back home, I called my parents to tell them about it because I was so excited and I had so much fun. And when I was on the phone with them, my dad he said, hearing how much like you love what you're doing and how passionate you are about all this, it makes me want to become Catholic too. And so from then on, my dad, he's just been kind of doing things on his own. Like he's starting to read more scripture, he's watching a lot of videos, and he's just learning more on his own. And he actually wants to join RCIA in the fall. So before, like, if it wasn't for me doing RCIA, I know like he would not have wanted to do it either. And my mom is starting to go to mass as well, which she hadn't done for a long time. So yeah, my family is just getting really excited about it too, and they're kind of wanting to follow in my footsteps, which is kind of weird because it's my parents. Normally I want to follow in their footsteps. What's that like? It's really cool. It's just so cool to see that like their daughter could make an impact on their lives. And obviously this was like a great decision that I made for myself, and I want to see them do the same thing. And so I just think it's so cool that they're making the same decision because I know it's going to impact them the same way that it impacted me. So I think it's really cool to see them do that.
So you were brought into the church the 9th of this month, I believe?
May 9th.
So that's 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
What have the 2 weeks been like? Is it different? Because it's kind of hard. There's so much build up to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, what do I expect? Do I expect a lot? Am I just going to be blown over by God? Is it going to be subtle?
Yeah.
What has that been like?
I think it has been kind of more subtle. I mean, originally it wasn't that subtle because it's like I just got baptized. Like I have no sins right now. Like this is insane. And but I think it has been more subtle just because it's been something that I've like been working up to for so long. Like I've still been going to mass every weekend. So it's like that didn't change either really. So yeah, it has been more subtle, but I think it's been amazing. Like right after I got baptized on May 9th, Carly, who was my godmother actually, she like turned to me and she said, "Welcome home." And I think that was like the most amazing feeling. Like I think that's what hit me the most was it's like I'm actually like I'm home. Like I'm part of the Catholic Church now. And I have so many people around me that are supporting me and that love me. And then it just like solidified my relationship with God. And so I think that was the best thing for me.
That is beautiful. Welcome home. So the church is often, another name for it is the Father's house. The church is the Father's house.
Yeah, I love that.
So as a final piece here, what would you say to people who are not home, but who are wandering outside?
I think I would just say it's just brought me so much happiness because a lot of people, they just see religion as just like something you have to do. Like it's not a big deal. And I was probably one of those people that looked at it that way too. But I think like it's just made such a huge difference in my life. And so I would just tell them that they should definitely try it out. Like just go even talk to people about it, go to events, like get more involved. It doesn't have to be huge right now, but any little bit will help. And clearly one Bible study can turn into you becoming Catholic, which is what happened to me, and it was the greatest thing ever. So I just think I want people to look at it like that. Like it will completely change your life in the best way possible. And yeah, I want as many people to experience what I did as possible.
Well, thank you for sharing your testimony and your insights on that. It seems like a wonderful way to summarize it right there of the power of an invitation, a simple invitation to a Bible study.
Yeah.
An encounter with God's Word through which He speaks to us.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks everybody for watching and for joining us for this missionary moment. Take care and be saints.